Hello, friends, fans, and dairy products of all ages. This is She's of Ages here, wearing an ugly old Navy shirt that would look a lot better on someone else. Anyway, this is a long, like 2 or 3 years overdue follow-up video to Tales of the Rogue Trader, in which I said the background story of my character and then promised to give further updates on other characters and on the events of the campaign. The problem is I completely forgot to follow up with that due to stuff that was going on at the time, and here we are 3 years later and we're making the update video. So we're not going to be saying much information on the other characters because it's been 3 years, but I vividly remember the events of the campaign because of the circumstances that happened. And beyond the end of the very short-lived overall campaign, we're also going to talk about other campaigns that I ended up taking the character into, that I will accept as headcanon, even though they aren't the same campaign and aren't by the same DM. So we'll just consider that part of the total history and career of the character, even though because it's not going to be continued, really. The characters aren't going back, the campaign isn't going to be continuing, although there's been talks of possibly doing another Rogue Trader-esque game, if not Rogue Trader, Edge of the Empire, with an emphasis on the sort of general concept of a crew of people on a ship doing business. So anyway, Rolland, Jarrion. The previous video I'll link in the video description below so you can watch that and hopefully be able to ignore the thunking that goes on in the background that I wasn't able to edit out or fix or deal with. But hey, details the background story of Rolland Jarrion and why his mentality was certain ways in certain times, and gives an overview of what the crew was like. We had the Rogue Trader, me, Rolland Jarrion, and a Voidmaster, played by my friend James, and played by my friend Corey. We had an Astropath Transcendent, who actually had an apprentice that traveled with us and was coincidentally very badass because he just rolled freaking amazingly high on his ballistic checks. And we also had a arms militant, played by my friend Sean, who was Russian and always looking for sandwiches, who was also badass and made a couple of really good ideas and was sort of semi a second in command for Rolland, because he would have good ideas and manage to positionally do things, and the whole team was working reasonably well together. We also had all the other roles on the ship filled by NPCs. So anyway, the campaign starts with us cruising up on Footfall, is what it was presented to us, even though it was presented to us as if it was Port Wonder. So they just kind of like merged the two together by accident. It may have been a miscommunication, but generally we sail up on this place because it's the gateway to the Expanse. It's the first stop for every Rogue Trader adventure, and it's presented as having been suddenly taken over by bad guys, by bandits, sort of. And this is a sort of a mistake because football's always been under the control of criminals. It was presented to us. It may have been a miscommunication, but I don't think so. That it had been recently taken over from the Imperium, and it was presented to us as Port Wander, which is, if I recall my lore correctly, actually under the control of the Imperium for the most part. Although it probably has its little underworld thing going on too. But yeah, anyway, here we are. We launch out. We start the campaign running face first towards this door, in which, yeah, this is a situation here that needs dealing with, and we were put here, so we latch on to the plot hook, and we try and like deal with the situation. rather than just sailing off. And this situation was supposed to be a campaign-long sort of situation in which, over a long period of time, we eventually freed this person from the thing. But that actually did not happen at all like the GM intended it to do, because we managed to dock and get a passage into the city to do the thing we had come there to do. And there's this whole situation in which he puts an emphasis on how there's people on every street corner looking at us and going over their headsets talking about us. So it gives us the feeling that we're being watched constantly. And we had to get past snipers, past the loading docks, and several of our people have been killed by snipers, and they're constantly trying to take over the ship. So, subtly while we're on there, because they're attacking the ship with snipers. So this slight mistake in presentation makes it feel like we will have a hard time going back to the ship, so we feel trapped and constantly observed on this space station. And we feel suppressed, we can't really do anything because we're constantly being watched. It was a mistake in presentation, I believe, because later he scaled it back, saying he never insinuated that. But hey, it was just a miscommunication that got us all really pissed off. So anyway, a series of things happen in which we make an underworld connection that we're not sure if we can trust or not, and we mill about trying to figure out what we're supposed to do in this situation. We're basically spinning around in circles, unsure of what to do, because we feel like we can't go back to the ship, and we feel like we can't really sneak around to do any subterfuge or get anything done. And this place is some completely under freaking military police levels of control, and we're constantly being updated in our position, so we don't really feel like we can go do quests or do anything. So we start getting more and more agitated at this situation, and a campaign session ends after we get some information on the power core, because I'm okay, what about where controls the power of this place? This is a space station, so what about the power plant? We could do something there, and we get information on that. So I'm annoyed as fuck. We know where the power plant is. We start heading that direction, and the session ends at that point. And we're all really agitated because a couple sessions end up feeling suppressed and trapped and unable to do anything for 2 whole sessions. So I go home and I formulate a plan. I do my responsibility of being the captain with 10,000 people relying on me, plus the players. I was the rogue trader. I was supposed to know the lore really well. I'm supposed to be able to role play really well. I'm supposed to be the rogue trader. I'm supposed to captain this bitch. So I take that responsibility to heart, and I freaking batten down and plan, formulate a strategy to assault this thing. And at this point, a recent discovery in the plot events before this session, a couple sessions had ended, we discovered that he had shot down and field stripped a ship ran by tech priests of the machine cult of Mars, or some other similar tech priest people, and had field stripped them of their cyborg technology. Now, the DM did not remember that this happening to Rolland's father was an aspect of Rolland's background, but I bring it up as a role-playing opportunity, and Rolland starts visibly becoming more angry and frustrated and tending more towards being violent. Because previously he's been a reasonably nice guy. He starts getting a little bit darker, and just has the mentality, so we're going to crush this motherfucker. And he's visibly agitated. which one went on was as a player. We were getting really, really pissed off. Everybody was, due to this situation. This calls back to one of my other previous videos about don't pin a player into the corner and piss them off and make them feel helpless and useless, and don't like cram their ass into that corner and expect them not to bite back. A cornered player will be coming back ferociously. Blah. So yeah, we found the location of the power plant. I formulated a plan. Now this isn't like, okay, we're going to take this power plant and we're just going to do something. This is like a 2-page plan, 1 page front back. So 2 pages of plan in a bulleted format. A 2-page plan of how exactly we're going to take back this city-sized space station from a number of enemies capable of taking over a city-sized space station from the military. 2-page plan of how to do this. Next 2 sessions, plan does not get to be implemented because the DM sends us on 2 wild goose chases. 1 session we spend completely running around looking for some person that spotted us doing something. Because we don't want them to know we're heading towards the power plant. So we track this person down and never find them. So in the course of the entire campaign, I don't remember ever finding this person. So it's just like, I don't know what I'm going to be doing this. I don't know what I'm going to do, so let's just run around for like an entire 3-hour session just running around doing nothing. And then we managed to get back on the ship because we've been thrown totally off, of course. And we're the GM's sort of nudging us to go back to the ship. Yeah, go get the reinforcements from the Imperial Army to take back this space station. Go. So we go to the find the Imperium, the nearest Imperial ship, to get an army of Imperial Guard to help us take over this thing. At this point, I think the campaign is already pretty much derailed, and I haven't even implemented anything. Because apparently the DM didn't prepare for us to want to aggressively take this back. But he backed us into a corner, made a couple of communication mistakes, and we were gonna get this motherfucker. We were fucking pissed off. Excuse me. So anyway, we get the Imperial Guard ship to agree to come over and help us out. And they actually don't amount to anything, because by the time they arrive, we've already put the plan into motion that we really didn't need any extra numbers on. It just sped up the process and made it less contingencies for failure. So I'm just gonna in headcanon pretend the Imperial Guard goose chase didn't actually play a factor in the thing, because even if they hadn't come, this plan would have probably worked perfectly anyway, because the section was just glazed over by the DM, and everything just kind of happened as according to the plan. So if it would work flawlessly with just 100 people, and it worked flawlessly with 10,000 people, operated exactly the parameters it needed to operate under to work with 100 people, then it would have worked with 100 people. So essentially, what happens was, we by ourselves with a small squad of our security personnel from the ship, because a rogue trader ship has about 100-ish security personnel that are around the scale of Adeptus Arbites. So we just basically took the police on our ship and mobilized them into a force. We took 25 of them. That we took the time to sneak off in small groups so they could get past the snipers. We managed to get them through. So we got about 25 of them with us, and we make an assault on the power plant, taking the tech priest NPC with us so he could jam their communications, so we could do this as stealthily as you can possibly do with 25 people. And we managed to actually take the power plant. Now this is where the plan starts going into motion. We head for the console in charge of, because this is a power plant for a space station, there's going to be emergency shutoff protocols and things like that. There's going to be an ability to cut power to things or lock down areas in a space station from the power plant if things go horribly wrong there. It stands to reason, doesn't it? There's going to be emergency protocols you can switch on and off. Pretty much everything powered in the station. And this is a space station. So basically, if a breach in the space station occurs, they need to be able to lock down quadrants of the space station so it basically doesn't just kill everybody on the ship if there's a hole in one place. And there could be a hole in any place, theoretically, so they need to be able to lock down pretty much every spot on the ship. So operating on the principle that every room in the entire space station is a powered door, we immediately have complete control of the station. Now, whether this would actually work in a more fleshed out or careful Rogue Trader game on a space station is not certain, but you can see the logic of every door in the place being powered and being sealable, because it's a space station. They need to be able to control breaches that happen. Shit can go bad on a space station and kill thousands of people, so they need to have safety precautions. And it makes sense for the safety precautions, one of the places to control them be in the power station. It was. So essentially, here's how it goes. We cut off communications with the docks, essentially, using the machinery on the ship to jam communications there. We close off communications, lock that entire place down, bring all of our people that were in the docks holding the ground into the space station, into the ship, close it off, and essentially vent all of the oxygen in the docks, killing all of the snipers. And then over the course of a period of time, put air back up in there. Now we can get all of our troops out of there without worrying about snipers. And at this point, we start sounding alarms using the emergency protocols of the ship, indicating that there's been a breach. And if they try and contact with people in the docks that may have slipped out, it's like, oh, we're suffocating, or something like that. Or they can't communicate with them now, and it's like, what's going on? What's wrong? And there's emergency klaxons firing saying that there's been a breach. So logically, everybody in the main area of the streets and stuff of the space station city heads into a building to be in a safe, locked down area that has oxygen, because there's been a breach. They don't want to die. So this occurs. I do this over the intercom system too. I pass bluff checks and do everything necessary. Everyone rolls really well to do these things that are necessary. So we managed to get everybody locked into buildings, essentially, and shut down every door in the entire place, forcing them to be confined to rooms. And we also cut off their access to inter-room communications via the ship's system, so they will have to rely on short-range communications. Their headsets, they can't rely on the network of the station. I'm sure at this point you can already tell, once we grabbed that power station and had complete control of the systems of the thing through emergency shutoffs, we'd pretty much already won. So, essentially, at this point, now we've got control of every single door in the place. So we get all of our security personnel and scrabble together a militia of a few people and manage to get 100 or so troops together to scour and to initiate the rest of the plan. In the actuality, this is where the Imperial Guard shows up. But We could have just done this with the personnel on the ship, because we've locked every door in the place. And most of these people won't have access to plasma torches. So essentially, the plan is, we did this with the Imperial Guard in actuality, but it was perfectly feasible to do it with just like 100 or so people of security personnel. We essentially go door to door, clearing them out one room at a time. And I'm on the intercoms talking about how the Imperial Guard has attacked, because this person took over a major trade hub from the Imperial Guard, and he has led them to ruin. They followed this man into stupidity. Like, what were they thinking? That they would be able to take this place, and the Imperial Guard would not come to kill them and mow them down? That the Imperium has complete control of the station, and can vent the entire place and just purge everybody at will. Submit or die. If you surrender, you will be given a fair trial. If you do not submit, you will be like shot on sight. So room by room, we're like shutting the lights off, opening the door suddenly, room by room, like coming in with like dozens of people, like Zerg swarming on a room by room basis. 100 looks like 100,000. So we Zerg rush room by room by room by room, mowing people down, capturing anybody that surrenders, cutting them off from communications so they can't tell how many people we have. And room by room, it sounds like the whole world's ending, because like 100 fucking people are Zerg rushing into the room next to you, and like mowing people down and destroying people. So it sounds like the truth, and they believe it. And over the course of a period of time, we manage, with Imperial Guard help, it wasn't entirely 100% necessary, we managed to take over the entire damned place. This would have taken a hugely long period of time, and we would have probably taken a shortcut. If the Imperial Guard hadn't been there to help, we probably would not have cleared out the whole place. We probably would have just cleared out the power station, left a few there to protect it, and like made a beeline for the big bad guy. Maybe clearing out a couple of buildings adjacent to it. But with the Imperial Guard, we just took over the whole damn place. But headcanon will be, we like took over the power station, secured it, and then made a beeline for the guy after making a few attempts to like convince them that there was like hundreds of thousands of people out there through conniving and cunning. Because it would have worked either way. So we make a beeline for this dude with several captured, like at least 24 captured people. And this is where like dark side Rolland comes in. He's been freaking tripped to his dark vengeance freaking period of time, which he was like blood vendetta, motherfucker. So he's freaking mean. He's going to make this dude suffer for field stripping those people like his father was done. So he essentially forces this guy's own men one at a time. He basically, okay, dude, rifle, go in there, take your boss down. One at a time. This guy, okay, I have a gun. Do I fight this 100 people, or do I fight my former boss? I get a pardon if I kill my former boss. So one at a time, one by one, one by one by one by one by one, we keep sending more and more of people one at a time to kill him. And he can't get out of the room. We're just scared. We've cut everything. We've cut off all of escape routes. He can't get out of there. He just has to keep stopping his men from killing him. So we just keep sending freaking people up in there. And when basically then we proceed to shoot the ever-loving fuck out of him after he's suffered enough. But that's not enough for Dark Jarrion. Dark Rolland is not freaking going to be appeased by that. Freaking takes his head, has his brain converted into a servitor. So now, the big bad guy that was supposed to be a campaign-ending boss has with a limited number of resources, had his army of thousands thwarted by a force minusculely compared to it, even with the Imperial Guard involvement. The force was small compared to what must have been there to take over the entire space station from the military, has been completely destroyed over the course of 5 or 6 sessions, has just been completely overrun and turned into my butler, and forced to say, like, things that demean himself, and has been turned into a mindless drone in my service. So yeah, Rolland went to a dark place. Rolland went to a dark place there. But Footfall, Port Wonder-esque thing, was saved. And could have been done with just 100 people, theoretically speaking, and was in actuality done with the help of like 1,000 Imperial Guardsmen. But compared to the number of people that was necessary to take over an entire city-sized space station from the army, that was still an impressive feat. But headcanon will be the original plan, which facilitated doing it with only 100 people, and would have mechanically worked based on how things transpired. So yeah, that was a good haul. We didn't get as huge a reward as possible from that, but yeah, we had a bit of respect from the Imperium for doing that kind of shit, and we got a servitor out. And we got like a bunch of like their rinky-dink equipment for the police and shit that didn't really do much good. We got relatively little reward out of that. The next adventure, which was never completed, it was essentially introduced and never came to fruition, is when we were given a free vacation to a planet, and we were just like relaxing and vacationing on the planet, like figuring out what job we were going to do next. We talked to a few market keepers on the resort planet who knew how to get like strength augments for armor that would give like a boost to strength capabilities. Basically semi-powered armor, but not full-on power armor, just like something that would be a strength augment for regular armor. So we could find one of that to hold us over until we could find power armor. And we find out that at this point the resort planet is actually on a countdown to Armageddon, because a warp storm has like creeped into its orbit, and the planet will be passed through the chaos storm within a matter of days. And so that's where the campaign had ended. We didn't manage to continue anything of that, and it was pretty much established if we go to do that mission, we're probably not going to be back in time to save anybody on the planet. And what are we going to be able to do? We're just one freaking rogue trader crew with one like cruiser. It's just a frigate, pretty much. The Pilgrim's Folly. There's not really any way we can save an entire planet from a chaos storm with the resources we had at the time. At least not what I'm thinking about. There's nothing we could really have done to save that planet that I'm aware of. But yeah, it never came to fruition anyway, because the campaign ended there. It just never started up again, because he had no idea how to continue it. It just died. But Rolland Jarrion lived on in another campaign in which I was allowed to play a rogue trader in a Space Marines game. I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of the Space Marines version of the system is, but essentially Rolland Jarrion got upgraded a significant chunk in power. Like over the course of the original campaign he was in, he was starting to build towards a bounty hunter career path at rank 2, where it would increase his combat capabilities without setting back his command abilities too much. And then he was going to like venture back into a rogue trader after getting a bunch of combat capabilities. So essentially I continued that path, and when I powered him up to be in the Space Marines game. And at this point, he'd earned some power armor and headcanon. It's like, this is the background of this version of Rolland Jarrion, like from the future. This is like, at this point in his career, he's done these things. He'd established a career of going after people that were untouchable. Like, this despotic ruler of this planet, Rolland Jarrion, is the hitman to call for that. He will take down people with entire armies on their sides, and he will get to them, he will kill them, he will take everything that is theirs. He's like the freaking planetary hitman. He made a career of doing what he did at Footfall, or was poorly communicated as Footfall. He does what he did at that first space station as a career, essentially, taking out people that don't need to be in power, or are in power and considered untouchable. Destroyer of warlords. And it earned a nickname of, like, Jawbreaker Jarrion, for just being somebody that will just run over your shit, and even if you think you cannot be touched, he will get to you, and he will just crack your jaw. He will get to you, and he will punch you in the fucking face, no matter how untouchable you think you are. So yeah, he joins up with the Inquisition after a point, much like his father, because he's, like, established a reputation for being, like, the guy that can touch the untouchable. So he's sort of an ally to the Inquisition, and given the title of, like, an Inquisitor. So he has all this stuff, and he's got, like, Inquisition power armor, and, like, Inquisitor equipment from a certain Splat book. So he's a Rogue Trader Inquisitor. And he's working with a team of Space Marines to do a particular mission for the Inquisition. And the Space Marines treat Rolland Jarrion with a measure of respect. Like, oh, this guy ain't a super soldier. He's not a Space Marine. Kind of like, look down a little bit, because, hey, they're Space Marines. They're genetically engineered super soldiers. This guy is not a genetically engineered super soldier, so he's not as good as us in combat. But he's a pretty badass motherfucker that we should respect the competence of, because he's a rogue trader, so he's got a lot of financial and, like, equipment power and buying power. He's got a lot of influence. And he's an Inquisitor, so he's got the entire Inquisition behind him. So he's got 2 writs saying that he acts in the God Emperor's name. This guy has a lot of power, and he's competent enough to deserve that power. So you're not a super soldier, but you're pretty badass. Yeah. So we head out on a mission for the Inquisition, as I had stated, but we have to go to a Space Marine fortress space station sort of thing, and we find that it's been overrun by Tyranids, which I say that Rolland Jarrion doesn't have a huge amount of experience with, because he doesn't, even as the member of the Inquisition, he doesn't deal with a huge amount of Xenos. That's not really his branch. He's dealt with, like, Tau and Kroot and the occasional Eldar or Dark Eldar, but he hasn't really come across Tyranids that much. He's, like, heard of them, but he doesn't really have a huge amount of experience with the Xenos, because his area of expertise is mainly dealing with human heretics and bad guys. He's a hitman of tyrants, not like a hitman of Tyranids. So anyway, this Space Marine fortress has been overrun by Tyranids, and there's a strong indication that there's a Hive Queen on that sucker, which is something that one squad of Space Marines is going to have a hard time taking down under, like, unoptimum conditions. And we're right from the get-go. The place is in full lockdown, so we are being hampered by the space station itself, especially Rolland, because he's not a genetically engineered super soldier. He has a harder time dealing with the thing in place that increases the gravity of the space station. The artificial gravity has been turned up, so he has a hard time getting around because he's not a super soldier, and his power armor isn't as good as Space Marine power armor. So yeah, he has having a hard time, and they basically like, okay, stay in the back since you're hampered, like lend range support and like do your thing. And I use my like rogue trader abilities to a reasonably nice effect, and we managed to get an idea of things that had gone on. And under my suggestion, we head towards the control center, a power sector, essentially doing what I had done on the previous space station again. Considering it's the world, the whole thing is in lockdown. We need to get to a place to like get in control of the lockdown. And of course, this is a sound plan. We don't need to be like having to burrow through every freaking door with a plasma torch, and like one of us fighting in like 2 times gravity. We need to get it where our fighting conditions are more optimized. Tyranids evolve to deal with conditions because, and these things have been on them for an indeterminate period of time. So these things aren't hurting them anymore. We've got to figure out some means by which to like hamper them and not us, and get the communications back up so we can call for backup. Because my ship's not here. We were dropped off in particular with a transport tip because the DM didn't want to have to think about like dealing with a cruiser quite yet. Because a ship of the caliber that a rogue trader advanced to that point would be able to just blow the fucking space station up. So like, let's take that out of the equation for this particular adventure. So we managed to fight our way into the control center, which was in control for some pretty nasty freaking Tyranids, those names of which I don't recall. And Rolland does get really badly wounded, but he does extract one of the badly wounded Space Marines to a safe area, earning his keep in the thing and earning some serious respect because he like goes in there, even though it might get him killed, to extract a Space Marine that's been crippled and get him like back to where he can like fire from a distance without like being consumed by the things that were surrounding him. He goes in there and he does things. He's impressive. He pulls his weight, gets people that are badly injured out of there, even though he's hampered by the gravity. And while he isn't the deciding factor of the battle, he is the deciding factor if there not being as many casualties as there could have been. Because like the equipment was competitive with a Space Marine at that point, and I was able to do a significant amount of work. And once the numbers thinned out a bit, I was able to get up in there and like throw down with the melee Space Marines and hold my own. So we managed to get control of the control center, and patched up and in a reasonable configuration. The most wounded of us are told to hold the space station, the control center, because we're not in a full-fledged condition to be able to fight. So we control that. We keep that, and we manage to, with control of the station's security systems and a reasonable. Basically, since we have control of the entire security systems of the station, we can control the flow of battle a little bit more and control, like, oh, there's a swarm coming that way, close the door, open this passageway, and throw things off, activate this thing. We'll like purge the scent of the area so they don't know which way we go when we went through the door. So we were able to control like the flow of Tyranids and get the security cameras back online. We were able to guide swarms, and the team in the control center actually managed to kill a significant amount of Tyranids by using things to herd them to a particular area and then venting that into space. So we managed to like thin out a large group of them, and the people going for the Hive Queen, which we've managed to locate, is able to go through much thinner numbers and take a clearer path as we control what they have to face, and they manage to deal with the Hive Queen with a combined effort from the team. We would not have been able to kill that Hive Queen without control of the complete space station thing. We had to lure that sucker into another room, drop a couple of Bombay doors on its back, and throw a couple of drop ships at it that were still on the space station. We had to we had to go to hell and back with that, and in the end, we basically set a small transport carrier. We've queued that sucker up, powered it on, queued it to self-destruct, and fired it had it engage full thrusters straight at the thing and plow it out of the launch bay. No, wait, we plowed it into the launch bay doors and basically blew that entire landing bay that we'd lured it into to Kingdom Come. And because we'd managed to get the other people out of there in time, we didn't lose anybody in the ensuing detonation. Thankfully, it was because it was only a relatively small transport carrier. It wasn't like a full-on spaceship. It was basically just a very large personnel carrier that we just launched like a missile into the motherfucker and detonated full score at the thing and managed to take it out after a long harrowing battle and finishing it off with the freaking self-destructing personnel carrier. But yeah, shortly after that, that campaign came to an end, but Jarrion was honored well by the Space Marines for his valor in saving the people, and the mission we had to do for the Inquisition from that point was essentially just some heretics trying to cyber up some Tyranids and control them as an army of cyber Tyranids. And we managed to do well in that. And I think it was also on a Chaos Forge world or something. It was in a mission most of the planet was machine cult sort of thing, and we managed to reclaim a portion of the planet and from Tyranid, cyber Tyranid overrunning and shit like that. And on this particular occasion, my ship did come into it because there was a mass combat situation in which the forces from my ship and the orbital bombardments things were accessories to dealing with the big threat. And yeah, with artillery support from the sky in the form of the Rogue Traders battle cruiser and drop ships, and it was craziness, mass combat warfare. So yeah, good times. And that was the last actual campaign session that Rolland Jarrion was participant in, taking over a partially chaos-taken Forge world from people wanting to make cyber Tyranids. And orbital bombardments and shit, and saving a Forge world from being exterminatist, which is basically just purge all the shit on the planet. No exterminatus for you. We are going to get this taken back. And we did. Saved the day. So, yeah. There's talk of another Rogue Trader game happening, and if it does, I'm probably going to have the Rogue Trader role again, and I'm probably going to make him the son of Rolland Jarrion. Since we're not continuing that campaign, it's another DM pondering doing it. I'll just make him the son of the heroic Rolland Jarrion, and have it where he's trying to live up to his father's shadow, and have it where Rolland Jarrion is actually dead after running afoul of a small armada of Dark Eldar. There was 5 much larger ships than his pursuing him. He was outnumbered cut off from whatever armada he'd managed to. Uh, he probably only had one big ship at this point, and not really giving like too many big ships. Maybe the other big ships were off doing other missions or something, and this was just a scenario in which they were waiting. They lured him into an ambush, but he still managed to, through the strength of his really consummate crew, able to lure them into a solar system with a dying star. And frigging kamikazed on them while his ship was like dying, because he's facing 5 larger ships. He goes out swinging, badly damages them and everything, takes out 1 or 2 maybe, and it's last legs. He's not getting out of the situation. The ship's going down anyway, even if he manages to kill the other 2 or 3. If he manages to destroy the other ships, his ship's still gonna go down. So he's like, fuck it, go in, ramming speed, rig a Nova cannon shell to freaking go off at point blank range, and freaking ram to where the freaking nose of our ship in his gullet, and then fire the Nova cannon. Sets off the dying star to go supernova finally, and just basically purges that entire fucking enemy from the Earth. I mean, he went down in a fucking supernova, killing 5 bigger ships. Went down with a bang. And there'd be like the story is it took a supernova to destroy him, but the truth is he actually caused the supernova to take his enemy with him. So it just took 5 larger ships. It just took being outnumbered 5-1. But yeah, I'll probably do something like that. Maybe have some explanation for the point blank Nova cannon shell. Is like it was something he kept after somebody tried to like rig a Nova cannon shell as like a bomb. So he's like, hey, this is a Nova cannon shell that can explode at point blank range. We might need this, so let's just keep this. And, so he has it. It's like, use that. We're going down with them. For those of you that don't know, which is probably the large majority of you, a Nova cannon is like a really powerful cannon that is hard to get, but like high tier ships might have them. They're very inaccurate because they're so fucking big, and it essentially fires a round that doesn't go off immediately, but when a shell on impact racks the hell, just rips apart anything within a several 1,000-mile radius of this. It's like city busters. It's like nuke to the umpteenth power. This one shot of this is enough to take down 1 or 2 ships. Possibly like 2 small ships to just be completely obliterated, most likely, unless the damage roll is complete shit. And even then, they'd probably be badly damaged and not capable of like fighting you some more. It's just with 1 shot. Nova cannon is fucking ridiculous. It's super fucking powerful. It's like main gun. We fire this only when we need to, because the shells are really, really fucking hard to find. It's like, my main gun takes $100,000 a shot. But you're gonna get motherfucked up. So yeah, probably have it where he just like freaking rams the Nova cannon's barrel straight into the gullet of the guy taking him down, and fires a sucker point blank range with a tampered with shell. And just brings down the entire freaking enemy armada with him. So yeah. But that's not something that actually occurred in a game. It'll just be like background of the new character. But the taking over of a space station from a much larger force with the help of the Imperial Guard, even though mechanically with the plot it wasn't necessarily entirely necessary, because of how the plan was going to work, and the saving of a Space Marine fortress from Tyranids, and toppling the foothold of a chaos tech cult making cyber tyranids did actually occur within the span of a campaign. So yeah, that was good times. That's the continuation of Rolland Jarrion from that previous video. I'll link the previous video in the video description, so check that out. Anyway, this will be Cheese of Ages signing off.